Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'll be sharing my thoughts on Fear the Walking Dead Season 6 Episode 5. As is the norm with all my videos, I won't be holding back on any spoilers, so please do keep that in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. I'm glad to say that Fear the Walking Dead's current hot streak has extended to this week's episode. This is another fine installment of the show. It has a great chase scene, it has some very good character moments, and it manages to build tension and conflict between the main protagonists without it feeling forced or unnatural, as opposed to when, in Season 4A, Alicia was firing a grenade launcher at Althea, and I just found myself thinking, what the hell am I watching? But anyway, the conflict in this episode is nothing like that. It feels very well written, and it's just another good installment of the show. So, thanks for watching, see you next week, bye. This week's entry picks up where episode 3 left off, with Sherry and Dwight getting some alone time. Unfortunately for Dwighty boy, before he can get the chance to bone his wife, she ups and goes missing in the house they are staying in. Saying that, I don't know whether he actually could have sex with her, because I remember Eugene bit his penis, so maybe his penis doesn't actually work. But why am I talking about Dwight's penis? Let's get back to the point I was trying to make. Sherry goes missing in the house and Dwight has to look for her, and then the next scene is the one that was in the Season 6 trailer where the creepy dudes in masks appear. Now, even though I knew this was coming because I'd already seen it in the trailer, it was still pretty unnerving and creepy seeing these dudes and seeing them staring at Dwight outside his door or outside the window, wherever it was. And yeah, it was kind of in keeping with some of the horror vibes that we've seen so far this season. It gave me the same feeling as to when, in episode 2, when the walkers were dragging the people under the shutters. So I liked it, and it kind of felt like it fitted in with the kind of the horror themes that we've seen so far already this season. So Dwight is kidnapped by this group, and then the opening crawl plays, and yeah, this really irritated me because the opening title screen has a silhouette of Dwight and, forgotten his wife's name, Sherry, standing next to each other, holding hands, and Sherry in one of her hand has one of the masks. So I put two and two together and thought to myself, oh, well, she must be part of this mask group then. And then after the title sequence, it's revealed that she is. So I don't know why Fear the Walking Dead would include this 2 minutes before the reveal was actually made. I don't know, it just kind of ruined it a bit for me. The mask group consists of deserters and outlaws from Virginia's camp, hence the reason why they all have to wear masks, and Sherry apologises to Dwight for him being kidnapped and says something along the lines of, oh, I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to get involved, which is a bit odd because if that was the case, then why kidnap him? I mean, I like the intro, but it kind of just felt like it was put in without much thought behind it of how much sense it would actually make. Sherry wants to stage an uprising against Virginia, and I liked how Sherry seems to be becoming more like her comic book version, and in the comic she's a fighter because I think after Negan is defeated she sort of gets some of the ex-saviors together and then tries to be their leader and tries to stage a coup against Rick. And I'm not saying that the show is going to go down that route with her going completely off the rails, but I like how she seems to be developing into an actual character now, because previously I'd always just thought of her as Dwight's wife or one of Negan's wife. There wasn't really much to her. So I think the writers did well by Sherry this episode. I like how her passion to fight Virginia stems directly from the abuse that she and Dwight both received from Negan. I mean, I would say that Negan is arguably one of the best things about The Walking Dead currently. His character's been through something of a redemption arc during the last 2 seasons, so much so that I tend to forget how much of a dick he was during seasons 7 and 8. So it's nice that in Sherry I have a reminder of how much of a bastard Negan was. Sherry blames herself and she blames her inaction against Negan. She says to Dwight something like, oh, how many chances did we have to attack Negan or do something, but we just sat by and, watched him do whatever it was he was doing. So she doesn't want that to happen again. She wants to go gung-ho and kill Virginia now. It appears as if she's suffering from some kind of PTSD. She mentions, when she's talking about Virginia, she refers to Virginia as he, and it's obvious that she has Negan on her mind, so I understand where she's coming from, although I don't actually agree with her methods. I agree with Morgan, which I will mention in a bit. Dwight sides with Sherry throughout much of this episode because she's his wife, he doesn't want to lose her, but Morgan, being ever the pacifist, argues against attacking Virginia, and I actually agree with him. Morgan doesn't argue against attacking Virginia because he's gone back to his all life is precious mentality, thank Christ for that. No, instead he says that they shouldn't attack her just yet because if they get it wrong and they mess it up and they don't wipe her out, then Virginia is just going to kill everyone they care about in the camp, and I actually agree with him on that. Ginny won't hesitate in killing Alicia, Strand, John, all the other characters we care about as a form of punishment and retribution if they do attack them. So I think Morgan is correct in urging caution. They need to make sure if they do attack her, they do it and they win. I don't think there's any need to rush things because John and Strand both have positions of authority within the camp. They're both rangers. We've seen that Daniel is able to get close to Virginia previously because he's been cutting her hair. So I think Morgan is right in saying the characters should bide their time, move their pieces on the chessboard and then wait for the right moment to strike rather than just going in guns blazing. Because if they make one mistake, that's it, game over, all their friends are dead. And, I certainly understand Sherry's frustrations. I understand why she wants to go in and kill everyone and get it done, but at the same time, it's not worth the risk. Morgan also makes another very good point when he says that he doesn't want to go through another drawn-out war like we had with the Saviours in The Walking Dead, and I certainly don't think viewers want to see that either, so they need to make sure if they do attack, they do one clean attack and they wipe out Virginia's group for good, that's it. They don't need to be fighting them in different locations and having this long war of attrition and all of that. I don't really want to see that either, so Morgan is absolutely right. For once, Morgan is the voice of reason rather than being the voice of irritation. I also liked how Morgan said something about that he was wrong for believing his way was the only way in reference to, his all life is precious mentality. It was almost as if he was kind of apologising for forcing his views on the characters and the show in season 4 and 5 and making everyone go on his little charity mission with him. And I like that. I like that Morgan is able to self-reflect, and I like that he wasn't rejecting attacking Virginia because he was, we can't kill people, we gotta let Virginia change. No, it was just instead that he wants to kill Virginia, but now is not the right time, and I like that. And I think the writers have done a fine job with Morgan this year. He's gone from being the character that I dreaded seeing every week to the character, one of the characters which I want to see the most. However, I am a bit worried that Morgan is now becoming Fear the Walking Dead's equivalent of Daryl, and by that I mean he gets all the sort of scene-stealing moments, and it's almost as if he's a bit too overpowered at this point in time. I mean, there's a scene in which Dwight is chasing a guy and he escapes, and I'll talk about the chase scene in a moment, and then Morgan appears on his horse, and the guy is tied up and he's been dragged along the floor, and it's like something out of bloody Django Unchained. And I don't know, it's just like Morgan turned up in the nick of time, this guy was magically tied up, there's Western music playing in the background, and then Dwight is there looking at Morgan in awe like he's the baddest guy he's ever seen. And it was just kind of like the show is trying too hard to make him look too cool, if that makes any sense. I don't know, it just kind of gets to the point where it's a bit silly. I kind of did roll my eyes when it happened. It was almost as if the show is just trying too hard with Morgan, if that makes any sense. Anyway, the chase scene itself is fantastic. Al and Dwight decide that they are going to try and steal back Al's truck from the Rangers, and they basically take to horseback and they're riding through this sort of muddy, dirty terrain with masks on and, trying to chase up to this truck, and it is something like out of a Wild West heist scene. And you could argue that Fear the Walking Dead is going too overboard with its Wild West theme this season, but I think it absolutely works, and this comes from someone who has zero interest in Wild West stuff. I mean, I don't think I've ever watched any Wild West movies. It's not really anything I've taken a keen interest in, but I'm enjoying how it's been presented in this season. Our protagonists do manage to retrieve the truck from Virginia's group, and it's at this point in which Dwight and Sherry decide to lure Virginia's Rangers to their location with the plan of then blowing them away with the truck's machine guns. As expected, Al and Morgan don't agree with this, and they are caught in the act trying to steal some grenades, or I don't know what it is, I think it's grenades which they want to then try and sabotage the truck so they can't use it, and Dwight and Sherry catch them. They throw them in the cell, and then Sherry also throws Dwight in the cell with them. And she says that she's doing that to protect Dwight from becoming the man he was when he was with Negan, and she's basically trying to protect him from himself, because there's a scene previously in the episode in which Dwight is interrogating the driver of the truck, and he's sort of threatening him with a wild dog, and you can see that it's almost like a flip switches in Dwight. He just goes into this mode where he's going to kill the guy, and he just turns into like a really cruel bastard, and it's the same guy, the same guy who kept Daryl in the cell, the same guy who looked the other way when Negan was bashing people's brains in. So Sherry doesn't want him to turn out like that. And, you know, Dwight will do everything he can to appease Sherry because he loves her. So if Sherry's going to go down this road of killing everyone, then he will join her just to be with her. So I think it's actually quite selfless of Sherry to say, no, you're not doing it, I'm protecting you, so you're going to stay in here. So I like that. Dwight does manage to escape the cell, and it was a bit weird that he escaped, and there were two men of the masked group who worked with Sherry who saw him escape, and they didn't really do anything, they just let him run out. That was a bit odd, but then again, I guess they couldn't really shoot him because Virginia's Rangers had just appeared at that point in time, so they didn't want to blow their cover. But anyway, Dwight goes over to Sherry and he tells Sherry to stop and not to kill them, and eventually, after a bit of back and forth, she does decide not to pull the trigger. Unfortunately, this causes a divide between the two because Sherry sort of blames Dwight for making it harder on her because she wanted to go ahead with it, and she blames Dwight for sort of forcing her hand, and so much so that she asks Dwight to leave, and Dwight eventually does give in and leaves. Obviously, part of me just wanted to see these two live happily ever after, seeing what they've both gone through, but at the same time, I also like what the show is doing with Sherry. I definitely think that her group have the potential to screw things up for our group. Maybe they'll attack Lawton in the future and it will kind of mess up our group's plan, which is quite interesting. And it would be interesting to see how our protagonists would react in that kind of situation. Do they side with Sherry's group and hope that she overthrows Lawton and hope that they, you know, can overthrow Ginny whilst also risking the consequences if they don't? Or do they fight alongside Ginny and hope it gets them more brownie points and they get more power within Ginny's camp if they can sort of get rid of Sherry's group? So I don't know, it's an interesting prospect. The episode ends with Al taking Morgan and Dwight to a truck which has the people from the rat-infested flat in it, which we saw in episode 3, was it? Yeah, it was episode 3. And Morgan is going to now take these people to the abandoned dam where the baby Morgan is, and he's going to try and form a community with these people. Now, the protagonists on this show have sort of made communities in season 4 and 5, and they've accumulated random people along the way. I mean, think of the children that they found in season 4, was it, or season 5 in the forest. But thankfully these people who were from the sort of the tower block, they don't seem as irritating as those children are. So hopefully, you know, this isn't too bad. I think this group will be better than the ones we've had previously. Anyway, this was a good episode. However, I do have two sort of minor complaints with it, which I quickly want to mention. The first being is that after Dwight leaves Sherry, him and Al decide to find two walkers who look like them and sort of dress them up in their clothes so then they can pretend that they died. And it's a decent plan, but I thought it was a bit odd that Dwight said to Althea, you know, how will the Rangers find them? Will they find them? And she just said, yes, they will. But these walkers weren't even like tied to anything, they were just loose walking around, so how will they find them? Does she have Rangers everywhere? I don't know, it was kind of a bit annoying really. And secondly, at the start of the episode, Dwight suggests to Sherry that they should run away together, and then Sherry says something like, oh no, we can't because Virginia will find us. And I kind of just thought, will she? Like, America's a big place, I'm pretty sure you could pick a spot and run away and she's not going to find you. And I don't like how, you know, at this moment in time, Virginia's Rangers are everywhere and they can't run away, and it's almost like Virginia has this CCTV network and can spot anyone. And it kind of reminded me how the characters would talk about the Saviours in season 7 and 8 of The Walking Dead. Oh, we can't do this because the Saviours will find us. And I was kind of thinking, well, they can't be everywhere. It's the end of the world. They can't be everywhere. You can just escape if you want to. So that kind of borders on being a bit unbelievable in my opinion. But then again, maybe Sherry just didn't want to leave with Dwight because she's so set on taking down Virginia and she just used that as an excuse. I don't know. Anyway, this was another really good episode. I liked and understood Sherry's motivations, even if I didn't agree with them. I agreed with Morgan and thought Morgan was very well written and made some fantastic points, which I would have never said 2 years ago. I haven't really mentioned Al much during this video, but she was actually quite likeable this episode. I enjoyed what I saw of her, and all around it was just another really good episode. I mean, Fear the Walking Dead can't really do any wrong at the moment. This was another good installment. I liked it, so let me know your thoughts below. Did you like this episode? Did you dislike it? Let me know. And until next time, I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.